Um, I'm pretty laid back. I like to bring people up in the tower and, have discussions. And I don't know if our Charles was like that, but I'll tell you, when that race rolls around and I see all that talent out there and that big money on the line, them super shows, I love that. I live for those. The bigger the crowd, I get into it. If there's only 200 people there, I have a hard time because it's kind of like, what am I doing? And that's not a. It's just it's.
Doctor's orders this after tonight's show and next Wednesday's show. Corey is not to talk until Saturday.
Yeah.
It's almost to that point.
Save
Yeah.
the voice.
Can we get a shot collar on him? So, because he will.
I've got
Here
one.
we go.
Okay.
He makes noise.
But no, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I like I said, I didn't know him. I wish I did, because I've never heard a bad word from anybody about our Charles, and I hope that this race honors his legacy there at Southern Oregon Speedway. I hope that I can do my part to honor this. It's and that's for me. When I go to the Budweiser Nationals, Mike Mosier was the announcer at Bakersfield for 23 years. I got to work a few Budweiser Nationals with him. One of the most talented announcers I've ever heard, because he was a racer first, then an announcer. And he brought that behind the mic. All the years I worked on cars, the time behind the wheel and the carts, and understanding what race cars do. There's not a lot of announcers, some, but I'd say less than half the announcers out there have ever had a chance to get in a car or had a chance to work on a car, understand how a car works. When you can bring that knowledge behind the mic, number one, you got a lot more to talk about, and you can identify with what a car is doing on the racetrack and give that knowledge to the fans. Mike Mosier was very good at that. That's something I kind of pride myself on. And when Mike Mosier passed a couple years ago, it tore me up, because we got to be quick friends. And we had, that camaraderie between us, much like racers do. We had our deal behind the mic. And to go down there and work that show with him, he's legendary down there. In fact, this weekend is the Mike Mosier Classic. There were guys that were coming up here for this weekend that aren't coming because it's the Mike Mosier deal down there, and that was their guy down there, and I understand that 100%. That's kind of what our Charles is down here in the Southern Oregon, Northern California type deal. That race, I think we're going to see 90 modifieds.
That's crazy.
Last year it was right around that. If we don't see 90, we'll see more. We might push the 100 mark. Modifieds. Sport mods and mods I'm talking about. We're talking about a lot of mods. That's going to be a late night. There's going to be a lot of racing going on. Big money. 5,000. You thought 4,000 was big for the late models. We're going to put an extra grand on top of that for the modifieds.
I hope they start about 3 in the afternoon.
You guys that are out there that are listening, that are fans, and you haven't been to Southern Oregon Speedway yet, these next 2 weeks, you're going to see you're going to get a really good sample of what it's all about down there. It's business time. It's big money, big talent, fast cars, and nobody's walking out of there that didn't leave it on the track. That's what's going on here. Look at Gary. He looks like he almost looks evil with that look on his face.
It's that grin.
Dude, you're almost as excited as I am about this.
I'm shaking inside right now.
I love these big races. When you get to the track and you see all those cars and you see all those fans and the lights are on and the sounds, and I mean, that to me that's what racing is about. It's the atmosphere. It's the competition, and and there's competition that's not real friendly sometimes. That's all part of it. It's part of the big shows. It's going to be interesting. I'm excited to see what is going on here as far as who shows up and who walks out with the money. Because last year there was some controversy at the R. Charles. The controversy that surrounded Colin Weinbarger. And you know how talented he is. He won the Speed Week show there. He's, I don't believe, going to be at this race. He's heading off. Him and Gray are heading off to the Super Nationals in Boone.
Oh,
They're going to the biggest modified race on the planet. Gray had a very good run there last year. He's the highest finishing modified driver from Oregon at that event. And I want to say he had to come out. He had to come out of the B main to get in last year. And if you guys haven't seen that race, hang on. I mean, that's the stuff that put me into heart attack mode watching that.
Can you imagine him announcing that one?
I watched that video on Facebook about an hour after that race was done and couldn't sit down. I'm standing up watching it. It was just Ferrando's job of driving was phenomenal. That's what we're going to see similar. It's going to be kind of like what we're going to see at the R. Charles. You have to go. There's big money on the line. You have to go. There's not going to be any saving it for the end. It's green flag drops and it's go time. This is it. And that's what you're going to see. I'm telling you right now. You're going to see guys saying, I got to get to the front. And I think some guys are going to do whatever it takes to get there, if you know what I mean.
I know what you mean.
It always
Yeah,
happens. It
it
always
does.
happens. It always happens at these shows, these big ones.
Yep.
It's part of it. You have to understand that. It's part of it. The final outcome, however, will be interesting. What are you doing?
He's being weird. He's playing with things.
Chocolate.
It looks like a chocolate bar.
Giant
so I thought
chocolate bar.
I'd take a
It's
bite
a
of it.
divider
He's
that
looking
goes.
for a golden wrapper.
It's a divider that goes in our media boxes.
Did you guys have anything you want to talk about in particular, as far as the racing coming up, the racing that what we've seen here? And
I have gotten several text messages from fans up here that are traveling.
There's a
down
lot
there.
of people
A
traveling
lot
south.
of people. Yeah, they've said, "Hey, I booked my rooms. I'm so excited to come down and see you guys and see the racing." And like Corey said, the next 2 weeks, boy, if you're going to make it down there, the next 2
That's
weeks
time
is
to do it.
yeah, is what you want to see. If on the
If you
fan
haven't made it
side.
down to Southern Oregon Speedway this year, and I'm telling you guys, this track is so. I mean,
I
from
love
bottom to
the
top,
track.
from bottom to top. I'm talking from the Hornets all the way up to the late models and modifieds and the sprint cars.
It's a fun track.
The racing is
It's crazy.
always exciting. There's not. I mean, follow the leader isn't typical down at Southern Oregon Speedway.
It happens, but not very darn
Not
often.
very often at all.
Yeah.
What's the banking on that down there?
A lot.
A lot.
I mean, it's
A
yeah.
lot.
Well,
That's what makes it exciting. Is that's why those guys could do that exit on those high tops and just blast past everybody.
It's if you can
It's
figure out the
great.
top there, you're in pretty good
pretty
shape.
A couple
Impressive.
guys have.
Yeah.
A lot of guys went up there and wish they hadn't too. I've seen them.
What did you guys think? I
Went
know
all
we,
the way
and
over,
we talked
yeah.
about late models, and we talked about Trent Elliott, and we talked about Mark Waggy. What did you guys think about the race that Darren Koffel drove Saturday night? Darren Koffel won that show. What did you notice about Darren? What did you?
Well, he just checked out. I mean, there was
For the most part, he was
he
he had a huge lead.
huge.
He was flawless,
super smooth.
He didn't do anything wrong.
It was very smooth, very consistent.
smooth, consistent.
That
just
is
like Gary said.
exactly it. That car never one time was out of shape, was out of sideways. It was Darren looked so. I mean, and that's a veteran race car. That is, he's been in the game a long time, decades, 35 years in late models, and that is a guy that can drive every lap, smooth, consistent. Found where his car worked. He kept it there, and what did he do in the closing laps? He knew. We're talking with him in Victory Lane. He knew somebody was up there, and he figured it was Trent Elliott. And he says, "But hey, man, I'm down here, and no one's got by me yet. I'm going to commit to this line. Why go up there and try something that doesn't work and blow this thing?" He says, "I'm staying here. My car's working. My marks are good," and he got the job done.
I think he could have put a safety or a sewing needle on the track. And he
Greg
probably
Arnold
hit
just
that
jumped in.
same
Greg Arnold
Yeah.
was
sewing needle every lap.
Oh man, Darren's good. I mean, he's one of the more talented late model drivers in the Pacific Northwest over the last 20 years. I mean, seriously, very, very talented driver. Greg Arnold just jumped in and says the back of his car looked awesome.
Oh.
Greg Arnold. Now, there is a guy you got to talk about, too, because, here's a guy who's pulling double duty. One week he's got the four-cylinder engine in the late model, and the next week he's got the V8 out, and he drove up to third place during this race. Before I think he ended up, I think it was like sixth or something, but he had a great run going for a guy that's only been twice out there with the late models this year. That was a pretty impressive run, and let me tell you why. Let me tell you what impresses me most about that. First of all, if you haven't talked to Greg Arnold, you got to get down there and talk to him. Fun guy. He's a racer, man. This guy is a racer. But I know what he's in. That Rayburn car he's in, I'm telling you right now, that is nothing new. That is nothing new. That's an old swing arm car that Jack Marin Tate used to run in Lebanon. And that car's been around. I mean, it is not what the XR1 Rocket is. It is not what the Capital chassis is. It is not what the Swartz are. And he drove by those guys in the first half of that race and worked his way up to third and was holding his own. That is all what's going on in the cockpit right there.
It's all skill.
That is all on the driver right there. It's got something to do with the car. I'm not saying the car is incompetent. It's obviously works well at Southern Oregon Speedway, given the fact that it is a swing arm Rayburn, which is, when you talk about late model standards, about the most simple suspension you can put underneath a dirt late model when you compare it to a 4-bar. The adjustments are very, very limited on a swing arm. They act different on entry and exit, but you look at what he's doing with that car. 100% impressed with Greg Arnold. Kudos to him. That's a race car driver right there. I love seeing that. I love seeing. I think when you can see a guy that doesn't have the best of everything go out and win against the best of everything, I love seeing that. And I've always been a fan of that. I always have.
Fan of the underdog.
And I think it's because my Uncle Mike, when I started racing when I was a kid, I started going to the races with my dad, my Uncle Mike. He was that guy that always cheered for, the hometown, low-budget guys. The guys that are working on the cars in their garages at home or whatever. That's what he was into, and it kind of rubbed off on me because I mean, you see that accomplishment. You see that. Okay, listen. You understand what's happening here. That's not all race car there. A lot of that's what's going on behind that wheel. I'd like to see him in a high-dollar car to see what he could do, honestly. I think if you gave that guy a chance in a big-money car, you'd probably get some pretty damn good results. Fun to watch him drive, and I know that he'll be there for the big money. He'll be there for, and you know what? He's one of those guys that you never know. He could pull it off and walk out of there. He could. I mean, don't count.
He's just been sitting back and sandbagging it a little bit until this race.
No, not Greg Arnold. That is one guy that you will not see sandbag. That guy will get checkers or wreckers, man. He's going to get all out of that car. That's, I'll watch him. I'll watch him Saturday night, see what he can do. It's going to be fun. I mean, we're going to see everything, you guys. I'm telling you right now, we're going to see everything. There's going to be cars from out of state. There's going to be cars that haven't been there yet this year. Donofrio and Elkins. They were only there one race prior to the big money. You look at all the guys that have been there all year long. Those guys have the advantage. Greg Arnold and Everson and Miles Dubert and, all the locals. I don't think Bob Dees is going to be there. I heard that Bob Dees is done for the year. I heard that 6 cars done for the year. Not sure why. I didn't hear why. I just heard that they were possibly not coming back for the year. I'll try to figure that out. But, he's one guy that's got a lot of experience at that racetrack that is actually fast. I mean, anybody can win this thing. I'm working on confirming. I'm not going to, but I'm working on confirming the 37 of Rob Maya possibly being in the house. That's a 5-time champ, at Lebanon.
He's out of Bend, right?
He's out of Bend. So was Hunsker. So was Koffel.
Yep.
And then you got Elliott come from Lapine. There's a lot of talent over there in Central Oregon. But I think there's some really talented locals that are going to give some of these guys hell. It's like I said,